The warehouse smelled of diesel, rust, and resignation. For weeks, a colossal M87 battle tank had sat in the middle bay. Its engine block split open like a wounded beast, its tracks half disassembled, its wiring frayed beyond recognition. Teams of civilian contractors had come and gone, each promising a miracle, each leaving behind only greasy fingerprints and a thicker file of work orders stamped un. By the time the last group packed up, even the most stubborn mechanic on base accepted the verdict. The tank that once led armored columns across deserts was finished. The command staff quietly prepared to scrap it for parts. Then, on a quiet Tuesday morning, a man in faded fatigues walked through the service doors. He wasn't on the roster. He carried no toolbox, just a small notebook and a battered canteen. His hair was silver, cropped short. His gait was stiff, but certain. The plastic visitor badge clipped to his pocket read Master Sergeant Rhett Daniel Cole. He had driven 3 hours after hearing a rumor that the old warhorse, the very tank he once commanded, was dying. He refused to let that happen. Cole shook hands with the depot chief, looked over the oil-stained floor, and stepped onto the maintenance platform. He laid a calloused hand on the chipped armor plating. Under the fluorescent lights, the tank looked less like a weapon and more like a patient waiting for last rites. Mechanics watched in awkward silence as the retiree closed his eyes and listened. He asked no permission, offered no credentials. He simply began. He traced fuel lines with a fingertip, inspecting each junction. He ran a wrench across bolts, listening for differences in pitch. He asked for the last diagnostics printout and squinted at the numbers as if reading an enemy's intentions. When one young technician tried to explain the cascade of electrical faults, Cole nodded but kept turning pages, piecing together a story nobody else had seen. By noon, he requested 3 items: a roll of braided copper wire, a replacement hydraulic servo, and 2 feet of heat-resistant silicon tubing. The supply clerk shrugged. Hundreds of dollars worth of parts had already been thrown at the tank, with no result, but signed them out anyway. Cole spent the afternoon splicing wires, rerouting a cooling vent that, according to the original blueprints, hadn't existed on early production models. He crawled beneath the hull, cutting away a flawed weld that, over years of vibration, had pinched a sensor cable until it shorted out the fire control computer. The causal chain was invisible on a monitor, but obvious to someone who had once felt that cable hum during live fire. Word spread. By nightfall, the motor pool gathered in clusters, coffee mugs forgotten, watching the gray-haired stranger restore circuits with the deliberate grace of a surgeon. When a skeptical contractor muttered that a single man couldn't fix what 2 teams had failed to solve, Cole only smiled. "A tank is like a platoon," he said softly. "If one soldier goes silent, you don't replace the platoon, you find the silence." The next morning, before dawn, Cole primed a fuel system. He poured a measured ounce of oil into the air, intake an old field trick to smooth first ignition, and seated himself in the driver's hatch. Lights flickered across the console, brighter than they had in months. He waited for the last pressure gauge to settle, then hit the starter. At first, the engine coughed a deep metallic bark that echoed off corrugated walls. Cole coaxed the throttle, feathering it in whisper-thin increments. A second cough, then a low growl, then a steady roar that rattled tool chests and sent a flock of pigeons scrambling from the rafters. Dark smoke rolled out, turned gray, then cleared into a clean blue haze. One by one, status lights shifted from red to amber to green. The tank lived. Mechanics erupted in applause. Some laughed, others stared in disbelief as the vibrations they'd chased for weeks melted into a smooth, authoritative hum. Cole climbed down, wiped sweat from his brow, and told them the real work was just beginning. A functional engine meant nothing if the drive gear still sheared teeth, if the stabilization gyro drifted under recoil. He invited anyone willing to learn to stay late, promising coffee and 30 years of hard-won knowledge. They stayed. Nights blurred into early mornings. Cole identified weak points that factory manuals never addressed. A relay hidden behind the main battery rack that misfired under thermal load. A fractured solder joint on the turret's data bus that produced random targeting errors only when the barrel elevated past 20 degrees. One by one, mysteries unraveled. Outside, autumn arrived. Leaves drifted across the depot yard as the M87 rolled onto the test track for the first time in 8 months. Mechanics lined the fence as Cole, now in the commander's seat, once more guided the 80-ton behemoth over concrete obstacles. The suspension, retorqued on his advice, absorbed every impact. He pivoted in place, locking one track while revving the other, a maneuver that once shut the engine down. This time, the engine barely dropped a note. For the final test, they loaded a training round into the main gun. Engineers held their breath. The recoil system had been temperamental, even before the breakdown. Cole selected a distant berm, whispered a quick prayer, and fired. The turret absorbed the shock with a satisfying clap. No alarms, no error codes. The impact bloomed in a fountain of dirt 100 meters away. Applause thundered across the range. The depot commander authorized a full restoration budget on the spot, citing the tank's now irreplaceable value as a training platform. He offered Cole a consulting contract, but the old soldier declined. His mission was complete. Instead, he asked that the youngest Mechanica quiet apprentice, named Alina, who'd stayed every night, be promoted to lead tech. She had, he said, the hands of a healer and the eyes of an artillery scout. On his last evening, Cole walked the length of the warehouse, running a slow hand along the hole one more time. He told the mechanics that machines remember care, the way people remember kindness. Treat her right, he said, and she'd bring you home when nothing else can. When the sun rose the next day, the tank stood outside, engine idling in the pale light, waiting for a new generation to take the helm. Daniel Cole drove away in a dusty pickup, leaving behind nothing but a signed logbook and an echo of possibility. The mechanics, once ready to quit, now approached every broken engine with a question: not what is wrong, but who is silent. And they listened, because sometimes all it takes to change everything is one soldier who refuses to give up. Based on accounts shared by maintenance crews from Fort Resolute, names and certain details have been changed for privacy and security.